Maybe throughout your day you've created, or throughout your career in Sage 100 in some cases, you've created systems and routines around your work that that kind of maybe keep you away from some new functionality or some been there that may be more relevant to you now. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a second and we'll walk through some things. Okay, hopefully you see Sage 100 now. And so some of the things that I want to look at today and concentrate on in General Ledger revolve around the main menu here, and namely the allocation functionality in General Ledger, the General Journal entries section. Most every user uses General Journal almost all the time, but there's some function into that might help speed things up. Also, recurring entries, transactional entries, and we'll talk a little bit about posting. Also, I want to just touch on some budgets, some functionality in budgets, the idea of using Rollups and as a way of grouping accounts together, and then discuss the functionality of non-financial accounts and discuss GL entry reversal. That's a functionality that came in, I believe, in 2015. I'm sure there are users out there that will verify that for me or correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it came in 2015, the 2015 version. So one of the ways that we can make processing a little bit quicker is especially if you find yourself needing on either a periodic basis or manual basis of moving the balance of one account to a series, one or more other accounts, distributing them to another account basically, or a series of accounts. You can do this by percentage, quantity, basis, and they can be even attached to period end processing, a cycle at period end processing, so that it can be done in mass, or you could do it manually. So the place where you set the allocations up is in the allocation entry screen here. And I've set one up already. Oops. Yes, I do want to cancel that allocation number. We set one up in advance for rent. And simply put, this is all about choosing a source account. So we have the ability to look at the balance of an account or some attribute of the value that exists in that account and distribute it using a couple different methods to a series of other accounts. I've entered 4 destination accounts over here by percentage in this particular case. We have the ability to do that by percentage or quantity. And the quantity function is basically a calculation that uses based on the quantity that you enter into the account line in the destination line, or basis. In basis, you can basically tell the system to evaluate the condition of maybe another account or some other content of another account and allocate based on that. I won't go into a lot of detail or any depth in that at this point. We can discuss that offline later on if you are interested in more advanced allocation methods. You can then associate the allocation with a cycle. And in this particular case, rent, I set up as a manual cycle. And what that means is that I can actually then open a general journal entry later and copy in this allocation at any time and allocate the contents of an account to a series of other accounts. I could change this also to period, quarterly, or annual, and grab it at period end processing. Down here in period end, you can see that you could select your allocations here and then post them through to the general ledger. So again, the idea of taking the contents of one account, distributing them to any number of other accounts can be made pretty easy by using allocation entry. Let me make sure I covered all my thoughts on that. Yeah, I sure did. Secondly, you could go into recurring journal entry. So this is a way to automate, so to speak, the idea of accounts or entries that you make recurring each month, each week. You might pay utilities every time and have it be a very similar entry. You can process these on demand, and you can choose by source journal, cycle, reference number, and make changes on the fly prior to processing. So in this particular case, if I open recurring journal entry and hit the flashlight, I've set up a recurring journal entry for payroll in the payroll source journal, and given it a cycle of M for, let's just say it's monthly, or in this case, just to say it's monthly. We pay our folks one time a month. Anyway, so then the lines of the general ledger entry are set up over here, and the system holds these recurring entries indefinitely for you to then go in when you need them, change them as needed. Let's just say this time it's going to be a $1,200 credit to cash, and to make it balanced, $350 to the 450-0202 account. I could accept that and then go into recurring journal and grab just the source cycle of M. And you'll see that the system will process just that entry because it was the only one that I have set to M, the cycle set to M. I won't update the journal there, but as you can see, I had the ability then to grab in a couple of different ways, by source journal, by cycle, or by reference number, any number of recurring journals manually. So that's a pretty nice way of setting up entries and automating them on that you make for entries that you make over and over time. Thirdly, the idea of transactional entries, and this is the functionality that not many clients use. The transaction journal entry is geared towards cash disbursement or deposits or transfers, especially if you use bank reconciliation. It's useful there, and you want to see the, let's just say if you're doing a cash disbursement, you'd want to see the check number in bank reconciliation for clearing and reconciliation. Transactions like payroll, expense checks, that kind of thing. It's faster in terms of, it might make your life a little easier because it allows you to, by source journal, create templates. In this particular case, let's choose payroll as our source journal. You're able to grab it by format, and so you can associate a format with the source journal. As you can see, PR is the source journal, and in the source journal format section, you're able to set up the front side of the account, of the end, sorry, rather than. So if I choose OK here, you can see that the debit side of this account entry will be, this transaction entry will be 101-02-00, and all I have to do is give it an amount, and then make the entries. And let's just say we're putting checks in. Go down to the 4,000s here and just grab them here, and then in this particular case, if I were to post this through, we would get a debit to 101-02-00, and the credit side of that transaction would be to 400-03-02. And so I could put in a number of checks here, disbursements or deposits here, and post this through, and it would show up in the bank reconciliation module in bank code D. So again, it makes it quicker because you're able to set up one half of the journal entry, the debit or credit side of it. I could change this to credit and flip the entry around simply by changing this back and forth. And as you can see, there are a number of, I would like to cancel that, there are a number of different ways, a number of different source journals that you can create and then associate a format with. So this one's not set up, but you can set up any number of formats with any number of source journals and basically speed up entry of transactional style journal entries. Again, the note here is that if your GL is integrated with bank reconciliation, the bank will receive the transactions, and then you're able to clear them just like any other check or deposit from a typical subledger. Most clients that utilize subledgers or submodules like AP or payroll generate these kinds of transactions from those modules. But this transaction journal entry can be useful for certain kinds of transactions. If you have any interest in this, or you feel like you have a situation that might use transaction journal entry, give us a call. Let Dee Dee know, and she can put you in touch with someone. Dee Dee, do we have any questions so far?
Not quite yet. I'll keep monitoring.
Okay, keep your eyes on the screen there. Make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Sounds good.
All right. So moving forward then, the general journal is the one that everyone knows in general ledger, and this is where you make your two-sided journal entries. In this particular case, I wanted to talk about some of the copy functions. Here we're able to choose a source journal just like a normal entry, and then copy from any number of from three different places that are holding transactions that you might use over and over, or that you want to refer to when creating a new journal entry. In this particular case, if I went to Standard Journal, I guess I should explain Standard Journal a little bit more clearly. Standard Journal is a place where you can set up the structure of journal entries and call them by using this function right here. So if I say Standard Journal in the Copy From field, I can have any number of standard journals set up here. And basically what that does is create the journal entry with 0 amount and allows you to just simply populate the numbers. It can be useful for speeding up journal entries, especially large ones. Similarly, and so there's a standard journal, there's a journal listing here, by the way. That button will show you all of the standard listing, the standard journal entries that you have saved and on call for the next time that you wanted to copy. Similarly, we could go to Copy From again and grab a journal history entry. So this looks back at the source journal entries that already exist for that particular source journal. And in this particular case, I grabbed that first one, and it grabbed the exact same entry from some time in history and brought it forward to today. And I could go in and make changes here and then post it through just like any other entry. And finally, I could copy from an allocation. And I mentioned this earlier. When you set an allocation to manual processing, you'll find that you have the ability to grab your allocations, the ones that are set to manual, from this list. Ah, I have that in use already. Did I not close the allocation? No, I sure didn't. And basically, this is looking at the allocation that I set up, an allocation entry over here, and using it and automatically copying it in, and you can tell it what amount you want to allocate here. Right now, it's looking at the amount that's sitting in the account at that moment, but you have other ways of choosing what amount in that account you want to transfer. And so if you say OK here, the system has basically copied that account, that allocation across, given the parameters that you set up in the allocation entry setup screen. And then this posts through the same as any other entry. So each of these functionalities utilize a general journal entry or a recurring journal entry, or sorry, general journal, transaction journal, recurring journal functionality to actually post to the general ledger. Allocations, of course, are either channeled through journal entry using general journal, or through period end down here in allocation journal. But each of the general ledger entry functionalities post to the ledger itself are held in the entry table until they are processed through using general journal or recurring journal and so forth, transactional journal. I wanted to just point out one other piece of functionality here, the daily transaction register. And the daily transaction register is basically a function that searches all subledgers, submodules, and grabs posted material, posted transactions from each one of those, and automatically attempts to post them into the general ledger. If you wanted to post from a submodule by itself, that can be done using the daily transaction register in that submodule. So we have the ability to both post just the submodule all the way through the general ledger using daily transaction register, or utilizing Daily Transaction Register at General Ledger, which looks at all of them and pulls them all in at once. And this is an all or nothing functionality. It will grab everybody. It'll look at all modules and grab it all at once, and you'll see all the transactions across all modules in this ledger if you were to print it, in this register if you were to print it. So that's the functionality of Daily Transaction Register. Next, I wanted to discuss budgets, and this will be a high-level discussion about budgets, as this functionality can be pretty intense. It's very full-featured as budget systems go. Down in the Budget tab on the left, you can click on Budget Maintenance, and in Budget Maintenance, you're able to basically affect one account at a time. In this particular case, I have 2 budget sets assigned to budget maintenance for the account 100-00-00. And there could be other budget sets here included as well for reference. I'm able to clear a budget by simply clicking on this button and clear the contents of those 2 budgets. I can then punch in an amount in period 1 of the 2010 revised budget and use this little tool, this gear here, and copy amounts, or I can change the amount by percentage, by amount, accumulate, and I'll show you how those work just briefly. So if I hit copy amount, it grabs the amount and copies it forward all the way through the rest of the year. I could then go back and change by percent, and I could just add 10% in here, and it would add 10% all the way down the budget. Similarly, I could accumulate by an amount or by percent. So if I said by amount, I could say $10 here. And you can see that it's accumulated each one by 10 all the way down. Extending on that functionality, there are wizards inside budget maintenance that maybe folks don't know about out there. The Calculate wizard allows you to refer to a certain budget and create a new budget or populate a new budget. In this case, let's look at, so I can select a budget to calculate. So we're gonna calculate the 2013 original budget, and we're gonna use what I've populated here, which is the revised budget of 2010. And then I can say I could copy the source budget, basically taking this amount and sticking it in the 2013 original budget, or I could adjust the budget. In this case, let's adjust the budget by 10%. And it gives me a summary of what I've done and pushes the budget across. So we have the ability to take the contents of one budget and completely populate the contents of another budget based on that, based on some parameter that we set up. So that's the single account budget maintenance, and I could accept this and move through all accounts this way. Well, sometimes that's simply just not an option. You need to have a greater control over more accounts at once instead of just one at a time. Some clients have very large general ledgers and huge charts of accounts. So we'll get to that, the way to do that in just a minute, but I wanted to just point out the budget report briefly. The budget report is exactly as it sounds here. If I say preview now, just with the standard settings, I can filter, by the way, to the left. If I preview this, I'll see the work that I just did on account 1000 here. It's just a good way to look at a budget overall and see how things look.
Pat?
Yes.
I do have a question now.
Okay.
It's a good time?
Sure.
Okay, it says if several people are posting and you update the DTR, then everyone's posted batches updates. Is that correct?
So if they're referring to the General Ledger Daily Transaction Register, I hope I'm understanding that correctly. If everyone is working around the system, let's just say someone is in accounts payable doing invoice data entry, and they post use the invoice register to post those invoices to AP, or in sales order, they are invoice data entry and invoice printing, or sales order processing sales orders, and they commit those orders to sales order, or they commit the data to AP, and then grab DTR in GL, it will grab those and post them through the general ledger. I think that's what they were getting at. Are you able to verify that I answered that, the question they asked?
Yeah, I'm verifying it now. I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So I think I was talking about budgets, and I'll let Dee Dee get back to me, and she can interrupt whenever she wants. Budget revision. Budget revision is an interesting way to affect many accounts at once. So I can go into budget revision and take the budget that I want to revise, which will, let's just say, is the 2013 original budget, and base it on the 2010 revised budget, and that's what we were working on earlier. And I could say the revision percent would be 10%, and let's just say in this particular case, we want to enable account selections and just look at the 100 accounts. Let's just say to 105. This generates an interface that we can use to affect multiple accounts at once. In this particular case, we only have data in the 100 account, but as you can see, we could work on numerous accounts at once here in more of a worksheet format. And the nice thing about, and it has some of the same controls as budget maintenance does over here. We can, you may recognize these functions. We can do the same kinds of things here. In effect, basically see more accounts at once and work on them in a greater worksheet here. You can see that the default for what will happen here if we were to post this revision would be down here in the lower left-hand corner, and that we set that up in the original screen. So if I say accept here, and I go in and run budget revision register, it's going to tell me what it's about to do. That's the nice thing about budget revision entries, that it will give you a worksheet of how it's going to change the budget. And you can see here it used the budget that it was going to adjust, and the amount that it's about to revise based on the settings I put into budget revision, and it's telling me what it's about to post as the revised amount to the budget. And so I can then take this and either post it through or not, make adjustments, then come back and post it. And I'll say yes and update the budget register. So that's a handy way to get at multiple accounts at once and adjust the budget as applicable, with a safety net, with the budget revision register in place that will show you exactly what it's about to do. A more advanced way and faster way to get at this is through the automatic budget copy function, and that function is a much more of a blunt tool. Basically, you grab one budget and you can copy it to another, and there's with very minor manipulations, and it copies right away with no audit trail. So it's a good way to get one budget into an empty budget set, for instance, and then modify the new budget that you created. And budgets can be a big deal, and so let us know if we can help you move through budgeting and put together a practice for budgeting that makes the best sense for you. Moving forward, by the way, just a timing note. Yeah.
Excuse me, but just going back to the question before, she said that you did answer the question. However, she was wondering if there's a way to only update what we have done. So she gave the example, what if the AP person or the AR person was not ready to update? Maybe they caught a mistake or something that they wanted to correct.
Right, so a way to stop AP from being processed through. Let me think on that. Let me think about the best way to go about that, and contact this individual directly.
Okay.
Dee Dee,
yes, I can get back. We'll get back to you.
And get back to them on that in a better way.
Okay.
I might want to discuss that with one of our other 100 team members, just get a little more insight.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the question. That's a good question. Just moving forward, I a timing note. I doubt this webinar will take much more time. I'm thinking maybe 10 more minutes here, and then you'll have a free 20 minutes to your lunch hour if that's what you were taking. I wanted to just go over 3 more things briefly, one of which is roll-ups. And very few clients use roll-ups. Maybe it's because they aren't sure exactly what they do, but what we're able to do with roll-ups, and if you see them in general ledger options here, you'll see the roll-ups categories here. You can set up roll-up classes, basically, or roll-up types. And in this particular case, I set up 2, regions and manager. And in this particular example, I'll just use manager. And what you can do is you can set up roll-up codes underneath that roll-up type. And in this case, I use some of the that you may recognize as our teammates here on the Sage 100 team. And in this case today, I'm going to pick on William. And you can then assign, going to account maintenance and general ledger, you can assign accounts to, or assign certain managers to certain accounts. And this makes sense when there are certain managers in the organization, or certain individuals in the organization who are responsible for, say, the budgets of certain accounts in the ledger, or a station manager who gets his own piece of the transaction ledger, or any number of ways you need to slice and dice general ledger account information without restructuring the chart structure, without working through departments and resetting up divisions and that. So in this particular case, I used account 800. And by the way I made that screen open just like that was by typing in the first 3 numbers and hitting the F2 button. And that pulled up all the 800 accounts. In this particular case, I grabbed 800. Oops. And as you can see, oops, wait a minute. I think I have 1 minute. Wrong account. My fault. 535 is where I had that set up. I had the 800 account set up for the next section of my talk. So 535 accounts I've assigned to William as the manager. And what that does is allow me then to go in and print certain reports and look at certain data based on William. And so if I go into the budget and history report, for instance, I have the ability, based on my roll-up settings, to go down and grab just William here. If I type in William and hit preview, in the budget history report, I see just the accounts assigned to William. It's just a handful. And so that can be useful for summarizing, putting together different data about different accounts based on certain managers. It's very simple, an easy way to get about that. Another functionality that clients don't use that often is the non-financial accounts. And so what we have the ability to do is create accounts in the system using a setting in account groups that denotes a certain account or set of accounts as non-financial. And then we can make entries to this account during our day that basically capture more quantity-based entries with which we can make calculations for financial purposes, financial statement purposes. And a good example of a non-financial account in my history would be in the food and beverage or in the hotel business. My clients would set up non-financial accounts for room sales, food and beverage covers, room sales by source. For instance, if you had 10 rooms that night, 5 of them were web, 3 were walk-in, 1 was a call, that kind of thing. And those were the 800 accounts I set up as transactional, or as a non-financial. So in this case, 800 F2, there's one right there. So this one is a non-financial account, and it's set up as rooms booked. And so what we're able to do with these financial accounts is then get a quantity of total rooms sold for the day, per se, and so the system will hold. Let's just say we had 10 rooms sold in our hotel. We were slow, or we're a bed and breakfast, so that was actually a good day. And those 10 rooms, we would then use that figure and divide the total revenue for the day, room revenue for the day, by that 10 and get an average, per se. and that's something, that's a figure that a lot of hotel businesses want to know about. Similarly, you could track the number of rooms that were abandoned or no-shows, and just kind of capture data that is critical to your business and your industry, P&L calculations, and just general performance. Those entries, by the way, are entered just like any other general ledger entry in general journal entry. Right here, you could just grab the non-financial account the same way you grab any other account and make entries that way. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the general entry reversal function. This came in the 2015 version, I believe, and what this allows us to do is one-click a reversal on an account. So what it requires is access to account maintenance. And by the way, there is security available in role security maintenance for this exact function, and so that needs to be turned on. I believe it installs as defaulted turned off. So if you want that turned on, you'd need to have the administrator turn it on for you in security. And basically what it allows you to do is to access an account and find a transaction that you want to reverse. In this case, I want to reverse this transaction of 5/31/2010 for petty cash is $908 debit. And if I hit that, it looks at that entire the entry, the originating entry of that journal entry, and creates its reversal. And so I can find that journal entry here in non-general journal. Don't post that. I haven't seen it yet. In general journal entry, we can hit the flashlight and we'll see the reversal there. That was the source entry of the reversal that we were doing. And so in one click, we can create that journal reversal. That's pretty handy and nice functionality that I'm not sure a lot of clients have. I'm sure that if they're on an earlier version, that would be very handy for them to make it to 2015 or 16 to get to that. So those are some of the things that I thought might be interesting to chat about today. And I hope that that kind of wraps up what I had to go over with you guys. And I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for spending half your lunch with me. Yeah.
Pat, before we finish, we do have another question regarding budgets. If we could go back to that.
Sure. Sure.
The question is, can you copy a whole year budget into the future year?
So if I go into automatic budget copy, the system is sitting in 2015 right now. I can grab, any number of any of these past budgets. Let's see, 13, 12, 10%. There's nothing. There's no budget. It allows you to grab this automatic budget copy allows you to grab a budget, any budget in the system, and copy it en masse across to the new budget. I hope that answers the question. I'll wait for Dee Dee to respond or to.
Yeah, just one moment.
That. Yep. But I'm happy to walk through any of that stuff in person if necessary, or follow up via email. No problem.
He said yes, it sure did. It answered the question.
Great. That is, Dee Dee, that is all I have. I ask anyone that's on this call today, if you have any questions or comments about our presentation today, to let Dee Dee know. She is an amazing person and a teammate to have for the Stage 100 team, and I'm so grateful for her help today. And thank you all for joining me, and look forward to chatting with you on the phone on a support call someday. All set, Dee Dee.
Thank you, Pat. We appreciate your time very much. Hopefully this was helpful. Just so y'all know, we will be having tomorrow a Sage 100 Alerts webinar at 11 a.m. Used to be known as Knowledge Sync. And in May, we have a Sage HRMS webinar on May 12th. at 11 a.m. and then you'll have another tips and tricks on miscellaneous time on May 17th. So stay tuned. We do appreciate your time. You will get a brief survey. If you have time, we'd appreciate it. And we hope to have you all join us again soon. Thanks so much.